Astros fans, cheers. Welcome to the Crawford Boxcast. The Houston Astros proudly poured for you by Crawford Bock from Karbach Brewing. You get beer. Oh my goodness. The Crawford Boxcast starts now. Here we go. Here's Chris Gordy and Ross Villarreal.
And it is a new episode of the Crawford Boxcast, playoff edition. Playoffs, as your Houston Astros are into the playoffs, as it was a little sketchy there for a little bit, but they punched their ticket. Not only punched their ticket, but win the American League West away from the hated Texas Rangers. And they get a little bit of a bye here on the wild card week, which is ironically already over. It was wild card week, and it ended in 4 sweeps. But here we are. It is Astros-Twins into the ALDS. And we got a fresh edition of the Crawford Boxcast presented by Karbach Brewing. Going to be plenty of Crawford Box flowing at Minute Maid because, Ross, the Astros have a home playoff series.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much I'm still in disbelief that they were able to turn it around the way that they did, win the games that they did. And it was not even that. They didn't just need to win the games in front of them. They needed the Rangers to falter the way that they did. And for it to fall in, I don't want to say perfectly, because I don't know, whatever. Who cares if Mariners or Rangers got in? Only one of them was, if the Astros were in. But for it to fall the way that it did and happen to where they had like whatever it was, like a 6% chance of winning the AOS going into the weekend, I still find myself in disbelief that it happened the way that it did. But I'm super happy that they are the champs because you get that extra time off. Verlander, Abreu, the veteran guys that are on this team, the Altuves, et cetera, that have been through these playoff wars that need a little bit of that extra rest because a team that's been in 6 straight ALCSs, they get that time off. They can set their rotations. The Twins had to play 2 extra games and use up and burn up pitchers that they wouldn't have had to otherwise. I mean, an absolute perfect. It's like hitting a hole in one on a golf course. Like it happens some of the time, completely unexpected, but much needed.
Yeah, it just, again, it was something I didn't even consider like the middle of last week. Because it just like the Astros, they were lucky to win 2 in Seattle, and they showed up and they took that series that they needed so badly. But outside of that, it was like, they're not going to go sweep the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are a good team. They're fighting for playoff positioning and all this, and just didn't think that it was going to be possible. But lo and behold, they sweep the Diamondbacks, and they got the help they needed with the Mariners winning the first couple games of the series. And then on Sunday, I mean, the Mariners, all they had to do was, all the Rangers had to do was win. The Mariners have been eliminated on Saturday night, and lo and behold, the Rangers maybe went a little bit too hard celebrating. Gordon Bryan.
Hey, don't say that. That's bad journalism. That's classless by you. It was a subdued champagne popping, Chris.
Yeah, well, the video I saw was Bruce Bochy spraying bottles of champagne in guys' faces while they
guzzled it down. They were literally chugging champagne and beer with 2 mega coolers at least that I saw full of champagne and beer. But that's whatever. The Rangers they did what they had to do, and they beat the Blue Jays, and they're on to the DS as well.
They did. But real quick before we get to the Astros, were you shocked that all 4 wildcard series were 2-0 sweeps?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the nature. Anything can happen, and mathematically, but absolutely, I thought, I mean, really all 4 series, you felt like going in could go any number of ways. Maybe the Phillies were much better than the Marlins, but outside of that, I'm a little surprised the Diamondbacks swept. Definitely surprised that the Tampa Bay Rays laid down it the way that they did. And then the Blue Jays laying up for this one and playing a bad lineup on Sunday. Like, all right, well, you know what? If we lose, oh no, we get the Twins. Well, you got the Twins and you got swept by the Twins. So definitely some surprise that we're not watching any baseball today on Thursday.
Yeah, the ironic part about it is how it's set up was we're going to get a return of a Houston Astro. It was either going to be George Springer and the Toronto Blue Jays coming back to Minute Maid, or Carlos Correa and the Minnesota Twins. And lo and behold, it is going to be the Twins. And interesting thing here is, Ross, they win the wild card series on Tuesday and Wednesday, and burn their starting 2 pitchers who have been studs this year, and Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray. They have some other really good pitchers as well, And we'll get to this. It comes down to Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober, who have been really good. As Chandler Rome pointed out, Joe Ryan was scheduled to start a game 3 of the wild card series, which would have been on Thursday. He said presumably he will probably go game 1 on Saturday. He faced the Astros twice during this regular season, 10 innings pitched, 7 hits, 9 earned runs, 4 walks, and 16 strikeouts. So you feel pretty good about Joe Ryan if that's going to be the guy on Saturday.
I don't know, man, because it feels like we've seen these types of situations where I almost would be like, I wish he would have shut the Astros down in a couple of starts and they figure something out, because we've been like, oh yeah, Astros shelled this guy. Remember Jordan Lyles over that second to last weekend with the Royals? They're like, oh man, they touched him up last time, and then he goes out there and he throws 5 innings of shutout ball. It's just, we always go to the old adage, it's baseball. You never know what you're going to get, because you could absolutely see, especially this Astros team, sometimes like, oh, they've been destroying this guy, no problem. And then he comes out and he just dazzles against them and they look completely lost. So it can go any number of ways. And yeah, Joe Ryan is good. The starting pitching with the Minnesota Twins is good. What it's going to come down to is, can the Astros, especially starting pitching staff, go ahead and get a Twins lineup that isn't necessarily a murderer's row. They're not bad, but I think that's where the advantage lays for the Astros. Both have pretty good pitching, and the Astros, I think, have a stronger lineup. So I think it's going to come down to the hitting, especially the Astros hitting. And then can the Astros starting pitching kind of mute those Minnesota Twins bats, because that's been such a huge question mark for us. You never know which Javier you're going to get. Sometimes you never know which Framber Valdez you're going to get. Even Justin Verlander's had a few bad starts here and there. So the wheels can come off quick in this series. The Astros are the better overall team, but it's not like in years past where they are just clearly better than everybody else. If you're into gambling, Astros a -175 favorite of this in the series price. So that's not even 2-1 as far as a favorite.
Bailey Ober is the other pitcher. He was 8-6 this year, a 3.43 ERA. He did not face the Astros in either of those meetings this year. So he's another option they could go with on Saturday. It feels like on Sunday, though, they would pivot back to Pablo Lopez, who's been their stud. He's got 11-8 on the season, a 3.66 ERA. He pitched Tuesday, so that would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday is when he could go again. And then it sets up for Sonny Gray to go in Tuesday's game in Minnesota. And Sonny Gray has had a really nice year for him at 17, or rather 8-8 was his win-loss record, but a 2.79 ERA. That's the best of the starters on the staff. So, look, it feels like to me, you got to take care of business, obviously at home, but certainly you want to win game 1. And Dusty Baker, Astros having a workout and some media availability on Thursday afternoon, and Dusty revealed Justin Verlander will indeed go game 1. Framber Valdez will indeed go game 2. To me, it didn't really matter. I saw some people saying, oh, I thought Framber would go first. Who cares? They're 1A and 1B. They're both aces, and it's time for them to go pitch like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say just down the stretch, I mean, last 2 outings, you had Verlander coming up huge in Seattle with that 8-inning 1-run ball performance, and that run that was charged to him, I think, because of Abreu came in and it scored. So really, he didn't give up the run himself, even though it was charged onto his stat line. So 8 innings plus, he was 8 innings of shutout ball. Then in the 9th, he ended up giving up the run, didn't record an out, and then the 5 innings of shutout ball as well. So if you want to go back-to-back starts for him, I think that to me, it was a no-brainer to put him in as game number 1, the game number 1 starter, even though he has been shaky here and there in the playoffs, wasn't great in the playoffs last year. That's okay. I don't care. I'm still a little bit scared of, we could go get no-hit Framber, or we're going to get all-hit Framber. So I do like trying to set the tone with Justin Verlander in game number 1.
And a little clarity, because I saw some people, there were people tweeting, Verlander sucks in the playoffs. Verlander overall has been great in every round up to the World Series. It's the World Series that his numbers weren't that great, and he was struggling to get his first win, which he finally got last year. But lest we forget, there have been some dominant Verlander home starts in the ALDS and ALCS throughout his time in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, he was ALCS MVP in 2017. I believe, he got shelled a little bit against the Mariners in round one last year, but then he pitched better after that. And then the bad outing, of course, when they were spotted the 5-run lead in game one of the World Series. That one really kind of sticks in the mind, I think, of fans. And one bad performance, especially in a huge moment like that, I think can kind of just stick in your mind more than it should. But overall, his career, he's got a 3.24 ERA. In the playoffs, he's got a 3.64 ERA. So you're facing tougher competition, especially as you go into the World Series. You're not playing any slappies, so you might get hit around a little bit. It happens. It's baseball. So only a 0.4 difference in his ERA from regular season, where he's one of the all-time greats, into the postseason. I mean, if you look at other guys like Clayton Kershaw and Zach Greinke and others, that's something that you'll take at the end of the day.
Yeah, and this is a different Verlander. You know, the strikeouts aren't, you know, what they were in the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, but he's still very effective. And as we saw in that Arizona game on Saturday, when they needed it most, he stepped up 5 shutout innings.
Huge.
Prior to that, he went 8 innings of 1-run ball, 3 hits against the Mariners. So Verlander been much better than his last couple outings, like you mentioned. And so you hope he goes out there and gives you a chance. But Ross, to me, you know, pitching is huge in the postseason, but the thing that's plagued this Astros team so much this year has been when the bats go cold and they're not able to score runs. I just, they're not going to win this series unless they score runs. And I say that because, you know, years ago we had Verlander and Garrett Cole and Zach Greinke, and you could win a 1-0 playoff game. But I just don't think this Astros team is built that way. You're going to have to score 2, 3, 4, 5 runs. If you do that, you will win the series, because the bullpen, you feel really good about, from Presley to Brian Abreu to just all the guys they've had that have stepped up and pitched well. I mean, Kendall Graveman's been a little bit up and down, but like Hector Neris has been fantastic, and we did get an update on that. Astros GM Dana Brown saying Thursday Hector Neris was assessed a fine, but said I don't think he's going to get a suspension for his actions in Seattle against Julio Rodriguez, so that's good. And you know, look, you're in the bottom line, you got to score runs if you want to win this series.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to have to come up with the runners in scoring position, which is something we've talked about a lot. And that's like, oh no, they can't get any hits with runners in scoring position. That's just simply not true. The balance of the season, they were the second best team in baseball in terms of OPS plus with runners in scoring position, only behind the Baltimore Orioles. So they have come up huge in some clutch situations. It's just when they do it, it's one of those things we forget. But when they go 0 for 8 or 1 for 9 and runners in scoring position, that's what we focus on. So they're going to have to be good. And you're absolutely right. The bullpen, it's like, just give us 5 innings as a starter, and then we're going to start going out. Like Phil Maton, since coming back from missing some time with that comebacker, he got hit in late August. He's been really good. I think in September, his ERA was under 1. I'd have to go back and look, but Hector Neris has been nails all season. Brian Abreu, as you mentioned, Ryan Presley to a lesser extent, but still for the balance of the season, he's been a plus reliever for you. Kendall Graveman, I like as well, like you said. So you're talking about like 5, 6 guys out of the bullpen where you're like, okay, you know what? I feel like we're going to be able to get some outs. And I know everybody hates Rafael Montero and the way that he pitched start of the season, but last couple of months, he's been a lot better. So, you know, 3-4 run lead, I would feel okay with Rafael Montero out there, but I know a lot of people wouldn't. But those other guys, you've got a lot of guys that you can go to that you can trust in the bullpen that have been pitching well and pitching lights out even down the stretch, which is important.
Yeah, he better not touch the field in a close game. Now, on the flip side, I will say that Twins have a really, really good closer in Duran, who, you know what, a 2.45 ERA, but go look at his numbers. Throughout the entire month of September, an ERA of 1. He gave up 1 earned run over 9 innings pitched in September, and then 2 scoreless outings in this wild card series against Toronto, where they got the 2-0 win and the 3-1 win. So he's very good. If they've got a lead late, he's probably closing the door, and you won't feel good about the Astros' chances. So jump on the starters, get an early lead for your arms, and you'll feel really good. Let's talk a little bit about the Mariners, or rather Mariners, the Twins lineup, and what you think of what you saw from them in this series with Toronto. This Royce Lewis kid is, you know, he's the real deal. What was he, a former number 1 pick, and was you know, dealt with some injuries throughout his career, but he looks the real deal, and he had a couple of big hits in this series for them, and a great year. I mean, about a 309, 15 home runs, and 921 OPS. that's kind of the guy I look. I mean, Carlos Correa gets the headlines because obviously he's coming back to Houston, but he had a rough regular season. Correa did. It was not anything to write home about. But if we're talking about guys that concern us, Royce Lewis is the one that I start with.
Yeah, probably Royce Lewis. Carlos Correa, yes, his whole season numbers, he hit like 230 or something like that. And then he had an IL stint at the end of the season. But if you look at, he got 3 hits in the series against the Blue Jays. It's not like anything crazy or anything like that. In 8 plate appearances, super small sample size. But if you also look at his September, I think he OPS around like 850, hit 296, something like that. So he really did start to turn it around. And that's somebody that, if you just look at the balance of his career, he is dangerous at the bat, and he is especially dangerous at the bat in playoff situations. So yeah, I'm not completely ready to dismiss Carlos Correa as like, oh, he's nothing now, his career's shot or anything like that. So pretty good postseason track record, pretty good September as well for the Twins in some limited action and didn't go on the IL. But yeah, it's definitely somebody that you keep an eye on as well for the Astros. I would say overall, they have a solid lineup, but there's not a ton of guys that I'm super scared about. So I think the Astros have a clear advantage when it comes to comparing lineups with the Twins.
Yeah, the weird thing is how did the Twins get it done this year? One, you played in a crappy division in the AL Central. The Astros, if the Astros played in the AL Central this year, they would have had this thing wrapped up several weeks ago because the competition was just terrible. But the Twins did it with really good pitching. Didn't score a whole lot of runs. Like, did you see Max Kepler was their leading RBI guy? He drove in 66. Like, you compare that to the Braves, who had everybody hit like a dozen or so home runs for the Braves. Astros, Kyle Tucker drove in over 100 ribbies. I mean, their leading guy drove in 66. Carlos Correa drove in 65, and then Royce Lewis drove in 52. Kepler and Royce Lewis are the 2 hitters that I'd say kind of scary the most because of what they could do. Kepler led them with 24 home runs. Michael Taylor had 21. But again, just like it doesn't.
Michael A. Taylor? Michael Taylor? 21 home runs?
Yeah, both their outfielders. But it just feels like they didn't have a ton of just not a whole lot of ton of pop in the bat. So, you wonder, you look at the series, they just won 3-1 and then 2-0. Those are very low scoring games. They're getting it done with their dominant pitching. So again, just where I say even more imperative, God, if the Astros could just jump out and put up a 3 spot in the first inning, God, you're going to feel good about it. Because again, like if the Twins have to score in this series, I don't know if they can as the game gets into the later innings.
Yeah, it's funny. It is pretty close, really, honestly, the matchups. I was a little surprised by the series price that I mentioned earlier, minus 175, closer than I thought. But the Astros hold a slight edge if you just look at for the balance of the season. They finished 4th in team OPS. You had the Minnesota Twins finishing 6th. And then in terms of ERA, the Astros finished 8th with the Twins finishing 6th. So it's seems like down on paper, a pretty close matchup. The run differentials are close as well. I'll look it up real quick. I know that they were pretty close. Yeah, 119 for the Twins and 129 for the Astros. So, I mean, we've been saying all season long, oh, it's the Twins. Let's go. Let's get the Twins. And you do have to factor in the division that it was pretty weak. But the Astros, I mean, they have the A's and the Angels who weren't very good in the division, and they didn't capitalize on a lot of those games, especially against the A's. And then, of course, the Royals. So, yeah, it would have been nice to have the Kansas City Royals in your division, or maybe not. They kind of beat you up down the stretch. So the Twins got it done. They took care of business. And so maybe their numbers are a little bit inflated because of the weakness of not anybody else finishing above 500 in the AL Central, but still a formidable opponent for the Astros, though I do expect them to win the series.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The Astros finished sub 500 at home this year. You are a home field advantage. You're playing at home. It kind of feels like to me, Ross, everything is wiped away here. You start fresh, and that crowd it's going to be a sold out crowd. It's going to be live, electric, and rocking on a Saturday afternoon. Just feels like to me, all that stuff of the regular season goes out the window.
Totally out the window. Not a factor for me, not a concern at all. I don't think anything of it. It's just one of those things. Brian McTaggart on earlier today on the Matt Thomas show, we have him every week, asked him the same thing, like, from talking to the players and looking around, like it just feels like it's just one of those times where you got to throw your hands up and say, that's baseball, man. This is the team that last year won 55 games at home. This is the same team effectively for the most part, as far as their hitters. You do have, of course, some other additions, but it's not like, oh, Jose Abreu came here and, well, he did complain about the batter's eye, but now it's fixed. So the only complaint that I would ever hear is why they're losing is because of the batter's eye, even though the opponent gets it too. But the Astros with only one left-hander on the roster for the majority of the season, and Framber Valdez. So batter's eye's been fixed. The crowd's going to be ready to go. You would want that home field advantage because that's, I mean, even though it's percentage-wise a much more slight advantage in baseball than, say, basketball or football, still the numbers bear out that the home team wins more often. And so anybody that was talking crazy, like, I want them to go on the road and go on a wild card. No. You want the time off, number one. And number two, you still would rather have 3 games at home out of 5 rather than the other way around. It's just, that's just, I mean, I talked to any of the players or coaches, I'm sure they would agree.
Let's talk a little bit about the lineup, because I did see Dusty Baker said he was unsure how much he'll be able to get from Michael Brantley in the ALDS,
Yes.
that he doesn't expect many surprises on the roster. But how do you envision this playing out? And do we really consider Yainer Diaz as a DH? If we're talking a situation where Jordan's going to be in left, I can't imagine for game 1 or game 2, Ross, that they would go Chas McCormick in left field and start Jake Myers in center. And
no. It'll probably be Dubon in center game 1, especially with Justin Verlander.
That's true.
He's his personal center field valet. And then the question becomes left field. Is it going to be Michael Brantley or is it going to be Chas McCormick? Where you could be in a situation where a lot of the fans, of course, banging the drum for Yainer and Chas all year, where you're game 1 of the ALDS, and you're still talking about both of them being on the bench. Or do you go Chas in left? It depends. Like you said, Dusty Baker saying, I don't know, but he's being very, very dodgy. Dana Brown seemed pretty unequivocal that Michael Brantley is going to be on the roster. It's just a matter of where does he factor in, especially going up against a right-handed pitcher. You might, I would imagine you see Michael Brantley, just a pure guess, game 1, Dubon in center, Brantley in left, and then you have
do you think they will start?
Alvarez as your DH.
You think that Brantley will start?
I think so. I think so.
Dusty, sometimes he speaks like you got to read between the lines on it.
Yeah.
Saying, I don't know how much we'll be able to get from Michael Brantley, almost tells me he's going to be just a bench guy. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, because it's also Dusty being Dusty. Sometimes he can be very dodgy and like, oh, I don't want to say anything because they're going to get to know, or what some huge competitive advantage gained by the Twins for him not revealing his roster. But going up against a righty, he likes to go with lefties against righties, et cetera, et cetera. Chas McCormick, more of a lefty crusher, but he has proven himself to be more than capable against righties this year as well. So, and better defensively. So I could see it going any number of ways. And the completely out of left field thing that we could see, because last year Mauricio Dubon was Verlander's personal center fielder. When it came playoff time, out of the 13 playoff games that they played, Chas McCormick started 12 of them. So Dusty said, all right, none of this Dubon BS. We're getting Chas out there because we need his bat in the lineup. Now, Dubon, the thing is, Dubon has improved both defensively and offensively since last year. So does that factor into where Dubon does get the start? I think, me personally, I would go Chas in center, Brantley in left, and then Jordan as your DH when Maldonado, is going to be catching Justin Verlander, and then Yainer Diaz is your bench bat. I don't know exactly what Dusty's going to be. Well, I guess in a perfect world, maybe you put Yainer Diaz's bat in, but we know that's not going to happen. It's a non-starter. We don't have to talk about it. But I would go Chas center, Brantley left. But I think if I had to guess, it's going to be Dubon center, Brantley left, maybe McCormick left. Maybe. We'll see.
See, I think they're going to go Dubon center for Verlander's game 1. It's going to be Dubon center. I think they will put Jordan in left. The question is who DHs. And again, if they feel Brantley is well enough, they may DH him. I don't think they'll go Yainer Diaz. I know some people are calling for that. They're just not going to do it. He's a rookie, and they're going to think we want experience for a postseason game. So they'll lean on that. We may even see, Chas could DH. We saw that a couple times on the end of the year.
Yeah, I would be a little bit surprised then, because you would have to burn him when you want to put him in the field late.
Yeah, but you could go Jake
Yeah.
Myers for a defensive.
Yeah, Jake Myers might not even make the roster. I was looking at Chandler Rome's roster breakdown. He's got Chandler Rome. Chandler Rome has Jake Myers left off the roster because you're basically your outfielders if you're keeping Brantley and then you're having Dubon basically essentially he is a utility man, can play all over the place.
Yeah.
But essentially lately he's only played in the outfield.
I think it all depends how healthy Brantley is
and
if he's that guy. A few other notes from today. Somebody asked Brian McTaggart, could we see Urquidy start in game 3 because he was so good in that start over the weekend? He said Dana Brown did say Urquidy will likely be out of the bullpen. So scratch that idea.
Well, does that mean that what is the wording on that from McTaggart? Can you bring that up? I mean, because my thinking was on that, like he's going to be available in the bullpen, but if he's not needed.
He said Urquidy likely will be in the bullpen. So that tells me
does that mean
Javier game 3, JP France?
For sure. That's what I would guess as well. I felt like Urquidy certainly had an outside shot because especially Dusty Baker likes to go with the hot hand type of deal. And Urquidy's got a hot hand. The 6 innings of shutout ball against the Diamondbacks in a spot start. And then before that, 3 innings of no-hit ball against the Royals on Sunday. So maybe they would factor with him. And he's also had playoff experience, like you mentioned, which factors into some of these decisions. So I guess I could envision a scenario where Urquidy's available in the bullpen, but if he's not used, then he does get a start in game 4, or you piggyback with JP France or look at the matchups, etc. I mean, whichever one you think plays better to a heavy left-handed lineup, which is what the Minnesota Twins have. I could see it going a number of ways. Let's hope they sweep and they don't need any of them.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure. It will not be Hunter Brown in game 3 or 4.
I wouldn't think so. I honestly, we could be living in a world where he gets left off the roster. If you think Urquidy is your long relief guy and you're going to go with France, and I mean, you feel like you have enough arms. I mean, maybe you would want a second long guy just in case Verlander gets chased early and then Framber gets chased early. You still get the days off. That's the thing with the DS as well. And a CS, you got 3 straight games. You don't have to worry about that in a DS. So I'm wondering if he does get squeezed off the roster.
Let's say you win the first 2, and then Tuesday you're out in Minnesota. Sonny Gray's pitching a shutout, and whoever gets, let's say it's Javier, gets shelled, and it's 7-0 in the third. Wouldn't you want to have a Brown to come in and eat up like the next 3-4 innings?
That's what Jose Urquidy would be in there as well. Yeah. And then you would have every reliever would just have had a day off. So you're not going to use your high leverage guys like Abreu, Presley, etc. Anyways, it's Montero and Hunter Brown season, sure, or JP Fran or Urquidy or whoever.
That's a Montero game. Dana Brown said the Astros narrowed their postseason roster down to the last 4 spots, weighing to decide whether to carry 12 or 13 pitchers. Astros have typically carried 12 pitchers in the ALDS, but they're weighing against the extra bench player. So kind of interesting there. This was Dana Brown on Michael Brantley. He's going to be playable throughout the postseason. I think it's more about the lineup in terms of if he's in, is Alvarez DH and that kind of thing. The way he feels now, he feels good enough to be on the roster. Again, these words sound like he's playable through the postseason.
Good enough to be on the roster.
Good enough to be on the roster makes me. He's not starting on Saturday.
Then why do you put him in a roster? Man, it's just tough. I guess you're just like he's just going to be available. Pick 3 games and I'll play those out of the 5-game series. This is just a bizarre situation with him. And especially all that time he missed in late September, there was a pinch hit spot before the game. He had the 4-hit game where he could have played. He didn't. They went to John Singleton. And then the next day he comes out and he gets 4 hits. So, I mean, he can only give you 1 a week. And that's what the state of his shoulder is. I don't know what's going on out there.
As we start to wrap here, Ross, let's talk a little bit about who could be the X factor here. We know Yordan Alvarez has the opportunity to go yard at any opportunity. Kyle Tucker kind of cooled off there, but had a couple hits over the weekend. We know Alex Bregman's always dangerous for a postseason home run. Jose Altuve's the table setter. But to me, Ross, the guy that heated up the last couple of weeks and came up with huge hits when they needed him most in this last series.
Say it, baby.
What
Say
if
it with
Jose
your chest.
Abreu?
Yeah.
What do you think if Jose Abreu is the X factor in this round?
You know what? Were you listening to the Matt Thomas show today? Because I said that actually, and I might have said it maybe with Wex. Like, I'm going to give you a preview of the Astros on deck starting at 2:30 Saturday, Sports Talk 790, 3:45 first pitch. It'll be me and Matt Thomas. And I absolutely, at one point, I'm going to ask about kind of under the radar sleeper pick for the series. And Jose Abreu, I think, is at or near the top of my list. It's not only that he hit much better since coming off the IL, OPSing around like 850 in 31 games with like 8 home runs. The batting average hasn't been there, but the power has been there. Like you said, the clutch hits have come in. He's been knocking in some runs. He's looked like he's moving a little bit better there. He just got a week off as well, off of his feet to if his back is ailing him or whatever. And I've still been meaning to pull this up. Like, I want to see his splits of what his average are after a couple of days rest. It just feels like you could almost set your watch. Jose Abreu's gotten a couple of days off. He comes out and he goes like 3 for 5 with a double and a home run. Like, he has been so much better when he's been playing in spurts rather than at the start of the season. I don't know how much his back was ailing him. Dana Brown talked about it today, saying that it's something that he seemed like he was keeping to himself, and he wanted to perform, and it ailed him for the whole, almost the entire season. But when he has been getting a little bit of rest, and he's going to get that only 2 games in a row in the DS, then a day off, 2 games in a row, a day off. Like, that is a perfect Jose Abreu schedule for him to perform, especially after getting the week off, thankfully them winning the division. I think that's a huge storyline to keep an eye on.
One other thing, keep an eye on the guy who's going to be behind home plate, Martin Maldonado, 2 home runs in his last 9 games played. So, guy, he got to 15 on the season. If Maldi wants to give me a little lanyap and a little extra home run in the postseason, I will take that as well. We can stop with the frustrations of him being in the lineup. We know he will be. You just hope for the best. But if the Astros lose this series, it won't be directly because of Martin Maldonado. It'll be directly because your best hitters, the Altuves, the Bregmans, the Jordans, the Tuckers, didn't come through and hit when they needed to most. So to me, that's the key to the series. Bats have to show up. Minnesota's pitching's really good, but Minnesota's offense not as good. I feel advantage Astros pitching, but Astros offense has to show up. You're not going to win a bunch of close games. You got to go put up some runs and score. Ross, in closing, do want to mention, of course, like you said, all the Astros games will air on Sports Talk 790. You and Matt Thomas will have our pregame coverage on Saturday. We will have Adam and Adam, the A-team, will have a little bit of an extended pregame on Sunday. And then you and I will have all our road coverage of this round presented by Karbach Brewing and the Crawford Bock, and we'll have you guys covered from Minneapolis. We'll have all the stuff on, we'll still be doing the Crawford Boxcast. We'll have all of our social media stuff, and we'll be bringing you videos and pictures and interviews and all that from up there in Minneapolis. And let's hope it's a quick trip, Ross. Let's hope we don't have to play 2 games in Minneapolis. Let's hope it's one and done.
Yeah, that'd be great. Then the next day we can just go check out the Mall of America, have a good time, and then fly back to Houston on a happy flight. That sounds perfect to me.
Well, here's the tough part. I didn't want to tell you this. Even though it might be an off day, it's a work day because we'll be uploading pictures and yeah, like still like web content we have to put up.
No, you're going to handle that. I'm going to be at the mall. I'll be on the roller coaster.
And we don't
upload pictures and be on the roller coaster.
And we don't like to show too much love, but the Astros Space City Home Network, they will actually have a post-game show with Todd Callis, Jeff Blum, and Julia Morales. So
that's cool. That's cool.
That's cool. But listen to 790. And while you're doing it, while you're listening to 790 this weekend, look, let's be real. You're probably going to have your TV on college football. You're going to have your radio or your iPhone with iHeartRadio listening to Sports Talk 790, and you're going to be doing so listen to an ice cold Crawford Bock. Whether you're at the stadium, whether you're at home, make sure you pick up the ice cold Crawford Bock. It will help you stretch that single into a double. Light to medium in body, of course, offers that taste of bread crust, caramel, and nuttiness. Mild citrus notes, pairs perfectly with peanuts, stadium dogs, and a good 7th inning stretch. It is the Crawford Bock from Karbach Brewing, brewed right here in Houston, Texas. For Ross Villarreal, I'm Chris Gordy. This has been the Crawford Boxcast. We'll talk to you guys real soon right here.